Welcome everyone. Welcome to Oz by Drone. I'm Greg.
Hey, and I'm John. Hi everybody. Welcome to the show. Great to have you back.
Yeah, good to be back. And John, last time, what happened? I mean, did the Easter Bunny leave you an egg with some alcohol in it that put you to sleep or something?
Yeah, look, the Easter Bunny did play havoc a bit last week with everything that went on, but I dropped the ball. I dropped the egg as it was, and so I missed the show. Glad that Lloyd was there to fill in. Thanks, Lloyd.
Yep. It's okay. We're just hassling.
Yeah, sometimes, yeah, it's just a bit depending on where I am in the world. I'm in the hang today, back at MAR, and doing some work on the very large beast, which I can just show you in the background here. It's quite an effort. Maybe it's not going to show up so well, but there you go. It's a 1,200 mil, 1.2 meters octocopter, and so we're getting that ready for a bit of work. So yeah, I'm having some fun in the hangar. Okay,
sounds like fun. A couple of other things happening in and around town. Number one, still pursuing Sutherland Shire Council. That's still ongoing. I'm not going to forget it. I'm going to mention it every week until we get an answer. That's second one, just an amusing story out of interest. I had some food delivered on my front step, and this was surprising because I hadn't ordered it. So I don't know how and why, but the next day McDonald's was attacked by a dog and strewn everywhere, but it was just an interesting little observation of something that happened this week.
There you go.
Anyway,
quite a week.
Anyway, it was. Okay, there's all sorts of other things happening, and let's get into. And I'm pressing the button. I'm pressing the button for the news title to come up, but it's not doing anything. Let me try it.
Well, let me jump in while you find the button and hit a little bit of news to start with for Australian operators, which is really exciting. On the 10th of April, the MOS Chapter 4 came in. Now, if you are an operator or a licensed REPL pilot, this one's been very quiet. CASA haven't been talking about it much, but it did slip through, and we were watching it, the legislation get passed. An instrument came in. So what that allows, basically, in a nutshell, is operators now to fly much closer to controlled airports in a tethered environment or indoors. Technically, before, there was no real ruling on flying indoors or what was flying indoors, whether you had a roof over you or what it was. But more interesting is the tethered flight. And now if you check out the Manual of Standards as amended Chapter 4, there's now a permission there in a diagram to show you that we can fly as little as 500 meters from a runway, not in the approach and departure path, but from the center line in a perpendicular direction from the center line, 500 meters from a major airport, up to 45 meters with a tethered aircraft. So that's a really big thing, sort of releasing a lot of roof inspections and other things that people do, or perhaps you've got something. So we're going to watch that further. Maybe they'll open it up to recreational flyers as well, because they've decided that once you tether your aeroplane, it does remove a lot of risk, even though it does introduce a different type of risk operating with a tether. If you practice that and do it properly, it allows you to have these other liberties. So anyway, for those that are interested in that little bit of news that slipped through this week, if you're an operator, check out Manual of Standards as amended. Just look it up on the CASA website, Chapter 4. It's all there. Very simple. It's only 4 pages. Put you to sleep at night, but it's great stuff.
Yeah, great sleeping material, and I'm going to give this one more go. Let's try this. It's going to work. Excellent. So we're going to get into the news at this time, and before we do anything else, we're going to have a look at a warning drone. So all of our topics today, something drone, and the first one, the warning drone. Using drones with speakers was popularized by the DJI Mavic Enterprise product in regards to recent events. Ace Core Technologies have launched an alternative that might give DJI a run for their money. This drone is called Zoe and comes equipped with a loudspeaker and gimbal camera payload. The drone can be transported on the back of a truck with an automatic RTK precision takeoff and landing. Flight time is 30 minutes in the real world, and even during heavy wind and rain. Let's have a look. Just judging by the size there, it's quite a large drone. as Ken Heron would say, it's a bit of a false multiplier ad with this big truck noise there, but let's have a look at the drone itself. Quite a large aircraft. And unlike the DJI system where you've got to pre-record messages that it's going to broadcast, this one is using an analog radio connection to literally use a microphone to get your audio up there and to get your message out.
Mensen met elkaar het gezellig hebben, dat is prima, dat kan ook. Maar hou ook dan...
So we'll leave that video there. We don't need to see the rest, but you get the idea in a nutshell.
Yeah, apparently that's been very popular around the place. Just as a point about the DJI Mavic, if you've got the smart controller, which does have a microphone, you're able to transmit your voice directly through it. It's very, very soft, unfortunately. The pre-recorded messages are louder, but we're trialing those in prison environments when they've got a riot going so on. We've had a case where the Mavic Enterprise would hover over the riot and sort of say whatever it needs to say, return to your cell or whatever, and unless it was pre-recorded. Now, I never really realised how useful a speaker could be on an aircraft like this, like on a quadcopter. It needs to be loud. It needs to absolutely frighten you to make it work, but it's been very effective and proven me wrong, because I just thought it was a bit of, I thought, well, you won't hear it above the props and all that sort of stuff, and people will just look at it and, give a short message with their finger. But no, it's been very effective. Because I think the other thing is, Greg, that goes with this video is that once the drone appears to be talking to you, people are aware that it's looking at you as well. And that seems to be the thing, that makes people, jerks them into action, if you like, on these things. Whether you like the idea or not, whether you think it's moral, that's okay. We're just talking about the technology now and what's
absolutely. And if anyone watching today has a prison and they'd like us to come and do some messages above you, Morrison Aerial Robotics is the website to go to.
Absolutely, man. You want to have a right in a prison, we can look after you.
Yeah. Moving on, we're going to go from prisons and speakers on drones to skeletons. Bones are nature's way of providing a structural framework that's strong and robust, yet minimal. This same structural framework, if tweaked slightly, can cause humans to break pieces of brick with their fist, while also being light enough to let birds fly, which are two attributes that this skeleton drone looks like attaining through its generative design skeletal structure. This drone frame does not need to smash bricks, but its structural design avoids weak points while still keeping the weight down. Just some interesting photos, and I thought I'd share that one. But using nature's bone system to go and make that light but still strong, taking the bits out in the middle, what do you reckon?
Oh, that's a fabulous idea. I'd love to have a closer look at that. And those of you that have flown and built flame wheels and so forth, getting weight down. A really streamlined structure like that will have some real application. I mean, they're not very aerodynamic. Most of the quads we fly, the Phantom was always an attempt at it, but really it is the Flying Pillow was never as aerodynamic. But that looks really exciting.
The Flying Pillow?
I heard it called that a number of times. People used to call it the Phantom shape, the Flying Pillow. It was rough. Because it was white, I suppose.
Okay, let's go on from that. By the way, Lloyd, if you could do me a favour and mute your mic, that'd be great. Moving on to our next story. This one, Russian drone. It's been reported that Ukrainian military shot down a Russian Zastava unmanned aerial vehicle. The drone system is designed for reconnaissance and targeting adjustment. This particular UAV system has been produced in Russia since 2012 under license of Israel Aerospace Industries. Just sharing that out of interest. It's not really something new in terms of technology, but when you do look at it, you see nothing more than a fixed-wing aircraft and a camera mounted on that, but just something interesting to have a look at, a little bit different. And there's the crickets. John is...
Well, I was going to comment on it. I thought, it is what it is. I'm looking at a fixed wing. Again, I know we had this talk the other day. I just think we're onto VTOLs now. I'd hate to be at a company selling a fixed wing. There's a couple of them now that are absolutely bargains out there if you want to get something that flies off the runway. But where VTOL is here, check it out. Something that takes off vertically. Put your hardware in that. But anyway, I have said that, but as you say, it's interesting to look at what they're still using.
Do you think the military is going to go to VTOL only and just totally ditch fixed wing?
I think that we're going there. Very fast. Actually, I mean, I suppose traditionally, hobbyists and people who are really 3D printing their own airplanes and building these things are always going to build things first. Like one of my heroes, Bert Rutan, who built model airplanes before he built, eventually the Voyager and so forth. And I think that, there's enough, if you can check it out, there's enough VTOLs flying around, even commercial ones, Quantum Trilogy. There's, of course, the Wing Trial, which is a tail setter. There's a number of different types of VTOL fixed wings now. That's been solved. Even the Pixhawk cubes now have all of the software, all the parameters for building either a tricopter, quadcopter, tail setter, whatever you like. You just dial it in, and all the parameters are there. It's very easy to put them together. So it's interesting. There's a bit of a lag there, I suppose, between some of the bigger commercial operators and what's out there. But check it out. Go check out the Quantum Trilogy. That's the mighty airplane. Not cheap, but it's incredible aircraft that takes off vertically, has a long wingspan, flies around for a couple of hours. It's just remarkable.
Okay, we'll definitely have a look at that. We've got one more story before we'll go to our guest. This one is the story about the Easter Bunny drone. So for this one, some grandparents, Hazel and Rory Wilson, didn't want the lockdown to ruin Easter for their grandchildren, so they decided to use a drone to deliver Easter eggs to them.
Special delivery for Leo.
This one's just a cute story, and I thought we'd share a unique use of drones. I mean, everyone's talking about drone delivery, but having the Easter Bunny, I think, is cute.
You hear that phantom whirring under the weight, can't you?
Yeah.
Just a little bit of wind there, you can hear those props, yeah. A lot of fun. Of course, you look, if those of you that are really keen on this sort of stuff, the bait dropper is the one to get there, so you don't have to land, of course. You can easily trigger and use a garnet bait dropper, and without having to get the airplane close at all, you can drop it down. But that's been around a while. We've got a few of those. They're fun, actually. But yeah, as I say, it's a video that was made for fun.
There's a lot of people talking about drone delivery kind of stuff at the moment. I'm reading a lot, and there's particularly a large amount of negativity about safety laws, particularly in the US, where people are saying, well, have a look at Zipline. They can do all of this stuff over in Africa, yet we can't even deliver a chocolate bar in the US. That's some of the extreme comments that are being made there. How do we get a middle ground, I guess, is my question. Maybe, there's a lot of people who've said, why don't we just slice out the airspace from, let's say, 420 feet to 450 feet? It's available for autonomous flight, something like that. What's a middle ground?
For me, there's not a middle ground. So just go back to the video we just watched. I didn't say anything, but those of you that fly saw, the 25 things that were wrong with what went on there and what
Absolutely.
could have gone wrong. So if all of a sudden the airplane had tipped over and a prop had sheared off and hit one of the kids while they're sitting there, which can and does happen if you do it enough times, right? So there's no problem at all. Putting the airplane down in the yard, a bit of concrete there, prop goes off, whatever it is. There's heaps of things. Oh, it was a fun video. It was made and it happened once. If you're actually going to look at commercial dropping, then you start with a blank sheet of paper and you start with all of the things that can go wrong. Well, you don't want your airplane to not be able to do the
let me
job.
rephrase this a little bit, right? I agree with you 100%. You and I are on the same page with that. But having said that, we're in an environment right now where the number of people out and about is lower than normal, and people are saying, hey, what can we use this technology for right now today? And what is the sensible middle ground that we could activate today that would get us not to where we want to be, but somewhere that's going to be helpful while people are in lockdown?
Well, very easily, the first thing to do is when you have and this is, of course, used in Canberra in Australia, when you have a delivery flight, and what you do is you land the aircraft. They had basically a fenced-off pen, and a gate with a security code. It was 30 metres, and the drone landed, dropped the package, and took off again. Now, once you've got a text message to say your package was there, and you got a code for the gate, and you went up to the gate and pressed the gate code, unlocked, walked in and got your package and walked out. That solved the problem. It was very easy. If you drop a package near someone, you've got all of those risks. But actually, the simplest way is to have a sterile area where the drone can put the package down and then fly off again. Then it's gone. There's no risk of anyone being near the airplane. And basically, if the airplane crashes on landing or there's a problem with it, there's no one there. You wouldn't get the text and be able to go into the gate or all that sort of thing. So there's really very simple ways around keeping that separation. But that's a commercial company looking at a way to solution. If you're going to drop a sausage, or you're going to drop Easter eggs, or you're going to do all of those other things, and you're having a bit of fun, you're probably only going to do it once. And particularly if you stuff it up, you'll only do it once. Where's the middle ground? Looking for a middle ground between commercial drone deliveries and dropping Easter eggs for grandkids, there is nothing in the middle there for me. You're either doing it for commercial reasons where you look at it properly, or you're having a bit of fun and making a family video. And I'd love to hear in the chat, people think I'm wrong. I'm really happy, but honestly, if you don't want to lose your aircraft and you want to do it safely, you look at things a bit differently.
Do Zipline do drops from their aircraft, or are they doing safe landing from somewhere else? I know they do that spring-loaded takeoff, for lack of a better description, but how do they actually drop?
There's one where you've got a extended winch where the package is lowered down the winch, and then you go and unclip it. So that's got a million problems with it, of course.
But this is Zipline. They're doing fixed wing. How are they dropping? Are they?
I'm not sure. I haven't seen Zipline with fixed wing drops. And to me, fixed wing drops are, again,
they've got their own problems.
VTOL.
Yeah.
That's got its own problems in it. So a VTOL airplane, of course, can do the range, can do the long distance. And when you're doing, vaccinations, if you look at the ones that are happening in other countries, in Vanuatu and places like that, and in Africa, they're all VTOL aircraft. So they've got the range, and basically what they're doing is landing, releasing the package, and then flying off, and then people come up and get the package off the ground. Very simple. You have a landing site. If you were dropping off people with a helicopter, you wouldn't have anyone standing around it. You'd drop passengers off, get the helicopter out of there, and then go and pick up the package. It's really simple. And of course, the problems can be solved. So I'm not sure, again, there's any middle ground. I could be wrong.
Okay. Fair call.
Wrong.
And speaking of proving you wrong, we're going to go to someone else right now. Ready to have a chat is Sean Hickey from Geeksvana. There we go. Oops, not quite. Wrong button. My bad. G'day, Sean. How you doing?
Hi, I'm good. How are you, sir?
Spectacular. Thanks for joining us today. It's nice to see you again. Today I've got some non-drone related topics that I want to, probe your mind about a little bit.
Okay.
We've spoken before about copyright and particularly about the BBC. Now, I wanted to talk about the topic of copyright. You know, there's been a little bit of chat about it recently. We saw one of our partner channels have a copyright lawyer on, but you did some stuff with the BBC. Tell us about what happened there and what's the final status of that.
Yeah, I mean it's still ongoing at the moment, but we're very, very close to having a final video on it. It's a little bit off topic for my channel, obviously, which normally concentrates on drone news. But I had a number of YouTubers reach out, especially once they knew I was looking into it, regarding getting BBC copyright strikes for using material that they felt was actually fair use. So a short clip from a BBC program, that type of thing. What they were also getting were copyright strikes and issues from clips which were clearly not owned by the BBC. They'd be from a completely different channel, sometimes a completely different country, and that obviously is a huge issue to content creators who are trying to include a short clip in a news article or a live stream, that type of thing. So we've had lengthy chats with the BBC at fairly high level. Actually, I was quite shocked at how high and how quickly we got there, including a video conference interview with one of the heads of policy over there. And basically it turns out that the people that they have dealing with the copyright side of things were doing it wrong, essentially. And they are now releasing a YouTube copyright policy document, which is the last thing we're waiting for before we can go live with our story, which will include even an actual email address to report abuse to, which is quite the response.
Okay, so my original concern with the BBC and how we started talking about this some time back was I think it was was it the chicken video? No, it was something else. They shot the drone out. That was the one. And it was part of a BBC documentary. And this was a 1 hour program. And out of that 1 hour program, I pulled out, I think it was maybe 2 or 3 minutes, and I edited just the smallest amount I could have to tell the story. And I paused that video every single time I saw something that was wrong with it. Now, fair use, when you're criticizing, critiquing, or commenting on someone else's work, the BBC going forward, like you haven't got the final document, but your understanding is the BBC going forward will allow people to comment and criticize their work.
Yes, absolutely. And in actual fact, they had no real idea that the YouTube community saw them in such a negative light, and that it was such an issue. So I think that's one of the reasons why my inquiries got quite quick responses, and because obviously to me as a Brit, the BBC is something that we still kind of hold dear to our hearts in many ways, but certainly we see it as an open forum, as a a publicly owned, government-owned state entity, which is there to help educate. So for them to be taking things down which are fair use and being so really active against any kind of negative discussion of their programs didn't really seem to ring true for how I find the organization. So yeah, but certainly moving forward, it should be a lot better. We are still waiting, and it has been a chunk of time now, for the final go-ahead on a couple of parts of our story, which are the juicy bits. So I want to wait until we've got those go-aheads, which I'm assured we should have. Well, just before all of this started, I was assured we'd have very soon. So hopefully once this settles down, so maybe in the summer, it'll get revisited. I'll get what I need, and we put the story out.
I'm looking forward to seeing it. And you do hold them near and dear to your heart, even despite the fact that they still come and knock on your door and ask you for money.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that we're more than used to here, and certainly for the money I pay for what I get back in BBC services, I'd happily pay that all day long, especially for the overall impartiality that we get from them. And the angle that they take on a lot of their services. I mean, things like BBC World Service and that type of thing have been critical in things like war zones, etc. So Personally, I have no issue.
This is not a major thing from a copyright perspective. It was just an interesting observation from us outside the country. Seeing a public broadcaster come knock on your door is just something that's foreign to me, and I'm sure to a few others. But let's move on beyond that. So fair use, criticism, all of those kind of things. Let's talk about the YouTube process in general. And this one, we might go to that 3-shot of you, me, and John, maybe. There we go. We've got John in the background. Now, I don't know who knows most about this, but we'll try and talk about it anyway. So when something happens on YouTube, there's 2 different types of claims. The first one is, you're using my work and I want you to pay me for it. That's the first type of claim. The second type of claim is you're using my work and I'm going to block your video. And the third type of claim is an actual takedown notice. So those are the 3 types of claims. I'm sharing what I know so that you can both hear this and find out, see if we're on the same page. So let's talk about the first 2 again, right? The first one, share your revenue. If you're using a piece of music, let's say, and you've got 30 seconds of music in a 1-hour broadcast, if they go and ask you to share your revenue, what actually happens is, and this, correct me if I'm wrong, Sean, all of your ad revenue goes to that third party and you get nothing.
Yes, yeah. I mean, there is this mystical middle ground that's often discussed, but in practice, I've never seen, unless of course you are a major channel yourself and you've used that by accident or something. That I think there is recourse, but certainly for us lowly content creators, yes, you could expect to see all of your revenue disappear.
Now, I wanted to ask you, John, as a musician, a drummer, but we'll call it a musician for the sake of argument now. How do you feel about YouTube doing that, right? So you're a content creator. You create a piece of musical work and you're happy for someone to use it, but you want to get a cut of it. Were you aware as a musician that 100% of the revenue, if you try and get some money, gets taken away from the other content creator who might use a bit of your work?
Well, to me, there's a couple of definitions in place you've got to realise when you're using someone's intellectual property. The first is that, and this is where the music industry says, if you're using someone's intellectual property to enhance your business, then there is obviously a fair gain for the person who owns that property. And so you could argue, I know because we've done, film clips before where we've wanted to use things like Come Fly With Me, which has got a massive, cost if you want to use and synchronize it. First of all, the copyright industry has evolved a little bit. Firstly, if you wanted to just play the audio and not synchronize it to video, there was a mechanism to do that. Once you synchronize it to something, then it's a different type of use and a different type. So one of the things is that you could use someone's intellectual property in a distasteful way. So that content creator, I created the music, and then you want to advertise, use it on a commercial for meat, for lamb or something. And I'm a vegetarian. I absolutely abhor the fact, I'm not actually a vegetarian, but I'm using that example. And so the content,
I get that.
The license was there so that it would you have to have what they call a synchronization license. Now, what happened was, of course, when we had the internet exploded, and we've got all of these great content creators. What happened was very, very different, and people just said, well, if I can't use that music, I won't. I'll just use stock music or use my own, or I'll whistle in the background. And so all of a sudden, the music industry said, well, hang on a second, we haven't really done the best thing by our content creators here. Let's put together a system where people can use that intellectual property. Now, there still is a recourse for the people. If my music is used in a distasteful way or whatever, I'm still able to challenge that use. But most of the time, if I'm going to get paid, and let's face it, I'm going to get 100%, I'm going to be pretty happy with that. And so I create drone videos myself, and I use commercial music, and I'm very aware that I'm happy for my colleagues to gain, because I believe it enhances the product. Now,
but let me go one place, John. I'm agreeing with you from all of the copyright, what you can and can't do perspective. But let me ask this one: you created a piece of music. You're happy that your music is able to be synchronized. You have no problem with that because it's complementary. It's not negative. It's not derogatory. It's you're happy with that. But are you happy to take away the video content creators 100% of their revenue? Were you aware that that's what's happening on YouTube?
Yes.
And do you think it's right?
Well, yes, and I'll tell you why. Here's an interesting one, because to be perfectly honest, in my case, video content creation is not my core business. And so if I really want to use that music and I'm creating a little clip and I want my friends to see it and enjoy it, I'm happy to let that go. It's not a lot of money, right, in my case. So here's the thing, en masse, once you talk to the commercial world and we get into BBC and television, that's a different playing area, if you like, and perhaps they'll use non-copyrighted music or they'll make other choices. However, having said that, I think there is room for this to evolve. I think in the future, whereas if I thought, well, I'd love more of my music, perhaps I could make an agreement with content creators that I'll split the profits with them. This is what arrangers do.
This is what I would love to see. This is what I would personally love to see, right? So if I'm producing a YouTube video and it's a 1 hour long video and I've got 30 seconds of song in there, I'm not saying that I don't want to give money and revenue to the creator of that song that was used, because it does enhance the overall what it is that I'm creating. But I don't believe it should be 100%. And it's YouTube that's made that decision, and I personally think it's the wrong one. My view is that, hey, your video is your video. Let's give you half of the revenue, period, end of story.
There's a little way to go there, and I don't want to jump onto Sean's time here, and I'll just finish this really quickly.
No, carry on.
At the moment, what you're doing when you're I write a song, I write a melody, and I put it out on the radio, and then someone else does an arrangement of it, a variation of it with a hip hop beat, and they cover it. Now, if someone really famous covers my song, I'm going to get huge royalties for that. If they came to me and they argue the point that, look, your song's great, and we've witnessed this with the song Happy by Pharrell Williams. It was another content creator created a great song of that. And they said, our version is going to make you a lot of money, but our version is going to revitalize the song, and so we want to do a deal with you. They're difficult negotiations. They have a long way to go.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? You're talking then getting into the commercial industry. There's no hard and fast rule. So what you're going to do then, Greg, is if you say, my 30 seconds in my 1 hour video, you're going to have to argue the point, and you're going to have to say, how much is it worth for you? Now, if I'm George Lucas and I've created a little bit of a film and I'm going to make that song very, very famous, you'll get artists sometimes that will give their music up, to various artists to use, and they negotiate it. And so it typically, lots of examples in the music business where there were two songwriters that wrote this particular song. I think it was The Rose. They gave it to Bette Midler. They sent her 50 other songs, and they said, look, just use that. We won't charge you any money. So it became famous. Then all of a sudden, those girls got their songs, all their other catalogue got picked up because Bette Midler sang that song. So it's a very, very big industry, and it's been going a long time, and the lawyers make a lot of money out of it. But we have a long way to go, and the internet has made some real challenges for it. But at the moment, if I'm really honest, a small-time creator like me, at the moment, if I choose to use someone else's music and put it on there, it's nickels and dimes, and they're welcome to it. That's
and you also have to factor in the fact that the whole YouTube dynamic with copyright came about from completely the wrong angle, because obviously YouTube grew, and then the music industry and the copyright industry suddenly realized, hang on, all of this stuff is being used without our permission. Creators are starting to make a lot of money, and then it all came in. So creators are coming from the angle that actually someone's taking my money, when actually that's completely wrong. It was never the creator's money in the first place. And on any other forum, like John's saying with TV, if a TV advert just suddenly decided I'm going to use "Come Fly With Me," as he's saying, that just wouldn't happen, because the negotiation would be extremely complex. Similar to the Ring of Fire song. The family was approached to have an indigestion pill marketed with that song, and they said there's absolutely no way we're ever going to have our father's song played on an advert like that. So, as John says, it's extremely complex to use a piece of music, and the benefits for each party and everything else like that. YouTube, just because of its success, its effective overnight success in copyright terms, it essentially became an issue that the copyright industry had to pull back. So now you have a bunch of creators on YouTube feeling like they're being hard done by, when actually, if it was any other medium, they would be sued off the planet. Frankly,
let me rephrase a little bit. For me, YouTube, what they're doing is they're using their entitlement as a platform, as a publishing platform, they've got some US-based rights to do things about the way they administer copyright, and as long as they stick to their process and their appeals process, they can do things in that way. But it's YouTube that made the choice that said, we're going to take away 100% of the revenue by default. And
I don't necessarily agree.
No, yeah, indeed, and that. But one of the reasons why YouTube makes policy decisions like that is because they have to make the decision over the entire situation. If they had a little sort of a mixing of 60-40 or 70-30s, and someone sued and won, that would end their platform. So they have to have.
That's exactly right.
They have to be draconian in the way that they implement things.
I'll tell you the middle ground I would love. I would love some sort of a split system where the content creator could override the default decision and say, actually, no, based on my creation, I would want 100% of the revenue. This is just me.
YouTube can't even administer that, Greg. YouTube you're making YouTube the people who are making a decision about what's happening. They're not, mate. The copyright law is on top of them. They can't break the law. YouTube are monitored very, very heavily by the people who represent content creators.
Absolutely.
YouTube would probably love to say, man, you can do what you like. This is our platform. We recognize that, and we'd love to make some more money out of it too. The fact is that YouTube would be shut down if they don't shut down people who are breaking these rules. They fall under a very, very heavy hammer. And Facebook recognizes this too. Social media platforms know that if they don't keep a handle on what's going on their platform, they can be shut down. And so it's not YouTube. This goes back decades and decades. And there are many, many cases where that you can drag people into court and they would lose. YouTube would lose.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the next step. We talked about copyright strikes and about where someone actually issues a takedown notice. Theoretically, the law of the ability to do a takedown notice is the copyright law. YouTube's decision to allow things to happen without prior approval, that's their decision to do that, and they're doing that in such a way to advantage the owners of the original work. But the only difference that I would love is that some sort of a split, but that's their decision. But going back to... It is complicated, I know. Going back just for 20 seconds to what happens when there's a takedown notice. This is something that I learned on the back of some recent discussions. A takedown notice, when it happens, you have the right to issue a counter notice. And when you issue a counter notice, what then happens is the party who is claiming the work in the first place then has to go, according to YouTube policies, and this is ratified under DMCA, this is what happens, they need to then submit a legal in-court challenge for that copyright work. And in the meantime, the person who published that actually gets to use it. So the onus is then on the creator to go into a lawsuit. Now, I'm not saying this is a get-out-of-jail-free card, but it is just an interesting observation of how the system works. And the next thing, before you go and take it to court,
practice, does it? Because if you look at Ash from, if it doesn't always work like that in practice, you look at Ash from Droning On, who did his expose on a very dodgy drone company, and because he used a lot of their footage, they did a takedown notice. It took him 6 months to be able to get that video back up on YouTube. So
there might be a delay. Yeah,
but YouTube will always go on the point of least litigation, essentially, and they will actually take a case-by-case view. So if they have someone like in that situation we're Droning On, where the lawyers come for them, it's not just someone's writing to them saying, take this video down because it has 60% of my content, but they start getting lawyers' letters and their legal teams are asked for appointments, etc., with these people's lawyers. They will take it down and keep it down until the content creator can absolutely prove beyond a doubt that they're in the right, which Ash did do, and very successfully brought his excellent piece of work back to life. But it's YouTube will, the same with the copper issue that came up at the end of last year. YouTube will always protect the platform in as draconian way as they have to. And unfortunately, we all have to sort of file in behind, and that's why the split thing would never work, and why it feels very harsh. The copyright system for YouTube creators feels very harsh, but it's because we started in the dark ages. YouTube creators started in the dark ages as far as copyright. There's no other industry that grew that quickly during the copyright era, that was allowed to grow that quickly and produce so much revenue using other people's content. It just wouldn't happen in any other media.
Yeah. Look, it is a big topic, and there's more that we could go on with today. But before we do anything else, I think it's time for, let me just find that button. There we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's time to play Stump the Yank.
So the audio says Stump the Yank, but we've got a new song today. Just for our Pommy friend, we thought we'd have a little bit of new music. And yes, I do have rights to use this. This comes from the Wirecast library. I've got rights to use it. And we're going to do something a little bit different. Instead of some Aussie trivia today, we're going to have some Americana trivia from Lloyd. So let's go to our four-shot over there. My producer, there we go.
Hey, Lloyd.
Okay. Lloyd, you need to unmute yourself.
Well, you told me to mute my mic, and I did, and I forgot to unmute it. So, all right. I'm going to kind of mix it up a little bit, because we got, in the South, we have our own way of speaking. So, Sean, what does it mean when we use the term mudding?
You are going mudding. You are taking 4x4s off-road into some wonderful mud and having an extremely fun time. And hopefully lots of young ladies get to fall over in the mud and have to change their outfits. And it's a wonderful religious experience.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so that's one for Sean. Second one, what else have we got?
Let's see, what else we got? There's a couple of them here I wanted to use. Let me see if I can find the one. What does it mean to squeeze a quarter so hard that the eagle screams?
Oh.
I believe, is that you, because you're as we would call them, a penny pincher, that you're extremely tight with your money?
Yeah. Boy, he's getting them all tonight.
That's good.
Unfortunately, I'm the one Brit that all my American friends say that I should be American. So
yeah,
that's good.
Exactly.
That's good.
Yeah, that's good.
I didn't know that one.
Okay, here's another one. It's a term. When somebody looks at you and say, "Bless your heart," are they giving you a compliment or are they insulting you?
Again, depending on which part of America that comes, but in the South. In the South, they're probably saying I'm being a little bit slow about something. I haven't. Oh, bless your heart. Well, yeah. Especially if you get the hand on your back as they're saying it, you know you've done wrong. Yeah. But they're being very nice about it.
Actually, he got all three of those right off the bat. I really thought So you've been watching way too much American TV.
Yeah, I work for an
pretty-
American company, and most of my friends are American. So,
Oh well, there you go.
That's pretty good. It's a good hit rate, actually. I didn't know the penny pinching one, and I'm sure I didn't even know the subtleties of Blush Heart. However, and I wouldn't have known mudding except just a really quick one. One day, Jackie and I were driving through South Carolina, and I stopped to get petrol, and I walked in, or gas, and I walked into the service station, and the young lady who was serving at the service station said, "Are you going to get mudded up?" And I had never heard the phrase before, and she's looking at my wife, and
there's some good mudding in South Carolina.
I'm sorry, I don't know what you're talking about. And she says, mudding up. And I said, I don't know what that is. And she said, well, you go out and you get your truck mudded up and your wife mudded up, and everyone just gets mudded up real good. And it took me a day to process. First of all, to intellectualize what she was actually saying, and then to think at the end of the day, actually, it sounded like a bit of fun.
It's an incredible experience. Yeah, it's one of the things that I'm most upset that we don't have in England. We have no, it's such a shame.
Yeah, because there's nothing better to see somebody in their Daisy Dukes out there, and there's a term. What does Daisy Dukes mean?
The Daisy Dukes is the shorts and boots.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Daisy, is that rhyming?
Pushing the back of a truck that's stuck with the axle spinning, getting nice and muddy. Oh.
Muddy, yeah. Daisy Dukes refer to the.
It's a thing of beauty.
Yeah.
Is there a little bit of rhyming slang in that, Sean? Just to go back on Daisy Dukes, boots. Is there a rhyming?
I think it's more from
that's ours
from the TV show, isn't it?
Yeah,
from the Dukes of Hazzard with Daisy Duke. You look like the Daisy Duke. Yeah.
So we're going to quickly move on now. Before we leave Sean today, we're going to play some of your video, Sean, some of your content. Ooh. And we do have copyright permission for this music too. So let's have a look.
and for the video.
And for the video. So this is some video footage of a windmill. Do you want to tell us a little bit about it, Sean?
Yeah, it's Pitstone Windmill in Buckinghamshire in England. It's a Grade 2 listed windmill. It's actually the oldest dated windmill in the UK. It's dated 1627, and on the British Isles, there is no older windmill that is specifically dated. They think there might be a couple that are actually older, but they can't prove it. It's been refurbished by the National Trust and sits right in the middle of a very friendly farmer's fields. Which is, it's even better when you come here when the crops are all grown up, because you really get that windmill romance feeling with it. But yeah, it's a fantastic site.
Now, when you showed this video to me, I absolutely love the idea of a windmill, because we've got the propeller on the windmill, basically. But here's my question. As an aviation guy, I don't understand. You have a look at the propellers and they've got lots of holes in there. There's very little surface or sail area. How does that actually work aerodynamically? John, tell me.
I'm just trying to work that out myself, actually.
They would have been covered originally. There would have been a cover on there, but again, they don't have it on there now because, of course, it's not in operation. So the last thing they want is the stress and strains of a heavy wind. Yeah, because there's some really heavy wind that come down through there.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's a wing. It's a fabric covered wing. Thank you.
Exactly.
I get that.
Okay, and just a quick little side comment. We were talking about copyright before. The original music that Geeksvana had on this video, we had to swap out. It was part of the Epidemic Sound collection, and I don't have a license for that. Geeksvana does. But the interesting thing is, if he shares that video to be broadcast or played anywhere else, the anywhere else can't use that music unless they also have an Epidemic Sound license. So that's why we've swapped it out. I hope you're thinking that this music is close enough for us.
Yeah, very good.
But some beautiful subject matter. Beautiful subject matter, and I think it's interesting.
It's an interesting little windmill, and we're very lucky in this country. We've got a couple of very large organisations that look after a lot of our old buildings, and this is literally a windmill in the middle of two farmers' fields in the middle of nowhere. Doesn't get many visitors, but as you can see, they take really good care of it. So we're very fortunate from the charity side of things, from an architectural point of view and a historic point of view, that we do look after our old buildings.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for that video. It was beautiful. And I do encourage everyone to go over to Geeksvana's channel. There's a message coming out from Nightbot every so often into the chat room there with a link. Also got it in the description for the video, I think. And one other thing, while we're talking about Nightbot, let me just run that little command here. Who was the top talker of the week last week? Just having a look in the chat. That'll come up in a few moments for those who are watching the chat. Anyway, Geeksvana, it was drone worship last week, you old big mouth and gas bag. Thank you. Okay. Fantastic. Moving on from that, thank you very much again. We're going to have a look at one more news story, I think, today. Yeah, let's do this. 1.06. We're going to have a look at this. I'll just let my producer get herself back together because she's been busy playing a jigsaw puzzle on her phone.
Fantastic.
As you do. Okay, UK officials confirmed a drone was operating after search patterns appeared on the flight tracking site Flight Radar 24. Amateur pilot and retired aviation journalist Mike Flynn tracked the drone last week on flights from Lydd Airport in Kent. A total of, and my screen just went blank. I don't know how that happened. A total of 130 migrants have been rescued from the Channel since last weekend, despite the lockdowns in England and in France. But here's what I really like. Let's play this video clip that comes after it. So this is a video that was on the same place where I heard that story. And unfortunately, we've got people, I think, from media organisations using drones and saying these vehicles should not be here. This man walking his dog should not be walking his dog. This
was actually Derbyshire police drones that did this.
These are police drones. They're not...
Yes. No, these are the police drones, which are basically highlighting that you shouldn't be driving to go exercise at the moment. And again, if you're off walking along the Peak District and you become injured, of course, you're using up vital helicopter support for someone to come and get you. That helicopter is needed at the moment to move people around from hospital to hospital, etc.
I was curious to get your opinion on some of this. I'll share mine first, and I'm curious to hear from John and Lloyd as well. For me, in Australia, if someone's going driving, if they're not getting out of their car, let them go for a drive to get out of the house. If they're going somewhere and they're not going to make contact with other people and they're going to walk a dog and they're not making contact with other people, let them do that. It gives a little bit of sanity to this insane world we live in at the moment. Do your people agree with that kind of philosophy over there, or is it different? Or?
Well, yeah, I mean, you're able to drive a short distance with your dogs, because obviously some people that have got 3 dogs, we've got very busy roads here, very tightly packed population, so you can't walk along with 3 Rottweilers along the footpath with cars whizzing past you. So you're able to do that. The issue that with these particular people is that they were driving to very remote areas. They were driving for
selected dragon
probably 45
Sorry,
minutes.
Sean, my producer was off with the pixies and pressed the wrong button. Go
Awesome.
again.
He's back.
So the people were driving for sort of 45 minutes, an hour more to go to these remote locations, and they were actually on the ground photos from the same police force showing traffic jams coming into these areas, and that's just not good, because obviously if you're driving that far and you have a car accident or a car wreck or something, you are taking emergency services away from what they should be concentrating on at the moment. So actually, although the media kind of reported those police drones and their actions quite negatively, the overall public reaction to that was actually they're doing a good job, let them do it. If they were, if they were trying to say to someone, you're 2 miles from your home or 5 miles from your home, they would have got a very negative reaction. But to be fair, those locations are remote, and there's not many people, very few people who live close to them. And the other issue, finally, is that these little villages where people are trying to self-isolate, they're trying to pop to their local shops and that type of thing, are suddenly full of cars who are stopping at those shops and that type of thing, and they're populating those little villages where these people are trying to protect themselves, have suddenly got these larger populations. So yeah, that's my two penneth.
Yeah, okay. Look, thanks again for that. I'm going to say thank you very much to you. We're going to skip a lot of our news stories. We'll go back to John in the studio now. Thanks,
Hey,
Sean.
Griggs.
It was great having you. I'm just having a look at the couple of super chats.
Thanks,
we've
Sean.
had one from Wayne King. Thank you, Wayne. And I saw one go by earlier, Zebmeat, for being patient with Ken. Ken is,
there you go.
he's a lovely guy. To be fair, Wirecast makes everyone impatient. I'll say that. Anyway, moving on.
Yes.
Thank you to Wayne. Thank you to Zebmeat. The stories that we've got remaining, we're running a bit behind. So rather than keep you late, I do like to keep my show to an hour. So let me give you the quick bullet point version. Number 1, Dragonfly is developing a pandemic drone to help fight COVID. What does that mean? We've already seen it recently, and we'll just put the video on in the background, but we'll turn the audio down.
The University of Southern Australia
let me
works
turn
closely
that
with the
down.
Australian Department
There
of
we
Defence.
Go. So this drone itself, we saw, I think, was it last week or the week before, where we've got this artificial intelligence detecting all of that stuff there and determining who is infected and who's not. This company's gone and taken that to the next level, so that's a really good thing. Moving on from that, the story after that, DJI is not turning its back on US customers. The FCC database revealed the existence of the new Mavic Air 2 drone that's likely to hit the market soon. And DJI says its factories are up and running and doing all of that good stuff. But at the same time, we're seeing potentially the job in the toilet and people getting retrenchments in the US. So DJI is definitely putting off a lot of people. They describe it as restructuring, but the reality is people are losing their jobs. But that is what we've got. It's not specific to that industry. It's what we've got all around, and DJI is no different to anyone else. We've got a video from Microsoft that we're going to skip. I might share that next week, but essentially you see the Microsoft campus empty. Here's one I do want to briefly talk about, and we'll put the graphic up for 1.10. 5G drones still need some work. A lot of people have looked into 4G and 5G networks as the next generation for command and control and video links, but it's not as simple as most people believe. John, tell me, have you looked at 5G or 4G networks for drone use, and what was your conclusion?
Yeah, 5G's got a long way to go here in Australia. Rolling it out, they're going to roll it out fast. One of the things that we still have problems with is connectivity and reliability in the C2 link. So whether recreationally you can fly, of course, using these things, but the problem you've got then is this is looked for flying greater distances. However, there's another use which probably hasn't been shown. That is the new, when you register your aircraft, whether there's going to be a link. And of course, if the future links, so while you're flying, you're sending the telemetry of where you're flying to, and it's being monitored. 5G, when it rolls out, will offer some real possibilities in terms of streaming and also the way the data is used. So at the moment, there's a great mod for a Parrot. If you're mucking around with the Parrot fixed wing for flying greater distances, and you're able to do that, you can use that. You can modify that to 4G. Don't see a lot of it otherwise. I mean, the Pixhawk you can add a 4G to. Look, again, it's a hobbyist world out there for connecting to the cellular towers. All I can say is in the commercial world, we're not using it for a command link or for controlling the aircraft. Certainly other images and information.
And an interesting observation though, John.
Works.
Interesting observation. The research that I've been reading this week is basically saying, from a telecommunications network perspective, they've got the same issue in their testing that is rumoured to be the reason why phones are banned on aircraft, and that is that the phone can see too many towers at the same time. So if you've got a 5G SIM up in the air, it's pinging lots and lots of towers, and mobile networks were not designed to have the one device hitting so many towers at the same time, and therefore handoff and roaming between all of these towers is certainly a problem that they found in their research.
Yep, that's exactly right. In terms of you were never designed to use a cellular network from altitude. Having said that, as a pilot, we use it all the time, every flight. These days, we're getting our weather and NOTAMs and company messages coming across the iPad. Particularly, we're flying non-pressurized aircraft in the lower levels in visual conditions where it's not affecting the navigation equipment. It's used all the time.
Agreed.
And so it is pretty good.
But the challenge is, while it works, I'm a comms guy, I'm a communications and internet and telephony guy. I know the challenges that secretly under the hood that those telecommunications networks are having to deal with that. Just imagine the handoff messages that are going around, pinging between towers and the capacity issues as a result of that.
Yeah,
it's something that they're going to need to look at. And I think there needs to be a 5G.1 where, as part of the signaling between the device and the ground, it's actually, instead of using signal strength to roam between those devices, since it's got a GPS in it, why not actually just send the location? And that location message, instead of signal strength, is what's going to be used to determine which tower to connect to predominantly, and then use the signal strength as the second factor.
That technology is being used with ADSB towers at the moment. So we've got this new system worldwide now with ADSB, where we've got ground towers, rather than using primary and secondary radar signals or SSR signals to monitor the aircraft, we've got these transmitters. And what happens is exactly as you described. You're sending a GPS position, and the nearest tower has a handshake with the tower. That's it. And once you move to a new GPS location closer to another tower, and it's managed by the GPS location, very, very simple to do. And as you say, all you need to do is have a phone with a GPS in it. And, of course, those cell tower handoffs can be managed quite easily. So we'll see those mods. We'll even see probably apps that you can install that will manage that type of cell tower handling. But, again, there's still a command and control link is still problematic unless you're moving towards autonomous aircraft that actually on board the flight control of the aircraft has all of its flight parameters and where it's going and what it's doing. Then you're monitoring that with a 5G or 4G network or collecting the data that it's collecting. You know, we've got a lot of companies that are looking at that. In Singapore, they use that. They're using the Singapore telcos, and they have the police drones over there do basically autonomous missions, surveillance missions, and they're just collecting over the cellular network. But again, there's problems. And one of the things that I have brought it up before, one of the things I'd look forward to for the telcos is that as we move into the next 20 years, and this is a big jump, you're going to have all of these towers with their own dedicated C2 link system for autonomous drones. So we're just going to see that as drones start to fly around doing their job, surveillance, deliveries, all of the other things. They will have their own network, their own frequency, and it'll basically be a robust system that exists on its own. And all you got to do is bung the transmitter on top of the existing cell tower, if you like, and then you'd have a fallback to the cellular network as a backup for it. But we're going to see there are telcos are looking at that now in terms of what they're going to invest into the drone industry in the future and what's there. But we're talking about a long time. And look, the regulatory side of that is going to be a necessary thing too. So once we've got autonomous aircraft and they're transmitting their position that are being controlled during their autonomous flight, you're going to have that kind of robust C2 link, the same sort of link, perhaps that military grade type link that you would expect.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that chat, John. We're going to move on to our last little bit of the show today. Now, just to share what this is and where it came from, we get our news feed all the time and all of these pieces of information and videos coming into the feed. And this one I saw as a ghost town video. And I thought, not another video of whatever city closed down because of COVID. Instead, I was quite excited with what I saw. The clip came with some great cinematography and subject selection in this very well put together video. The creator, his channel name is called Rambo. The link is in the description. So I definitely want you to go have a look at that. We've invited him to come as a guest in the future. And for my producer, this is number 6 in the list, in case you're wondering. I saw her looking there. So without further ado, let's have a look. Rambo.
Nevada.
I really thought it was going to be another COVID video where the town was empty and bare, but it is just a ghost town, a real ghost town.
How do you know it's not? It looks like a film set to me.
It does, but it's real.
Wow, that's something.
Now, he hasn't had a large number of views on his channel, but this is just so well put together. Please, everyone who's watching today, go to the description for the video, click the link to his channel, and let him know that we sent you across to say hello.
Wow.
And tell him what you think of the video.
Hey, Lloyd, places like that in America, really? Like little places like that where everyone's just left?
Yeah.
Wow.
Including the school bus?
Including what?
Yeah, look at it.
Including the school bus?
Well, this might be a little bit set up for a tourist, but there are, what happens with a lot of these is people buy the town and it's been abandoned and it's for sale, and, they just buy the land and then they fix up a few of the buildings and turn it into a tourist set.
Wow. It's cool.
I've actually, there was one I went to that should have been a ghost town that I wished I'd never gone to. It was up on a godforsaken mountain where you look down. It was an old mining town, and when you get up there, it was a creepy place, and there were people still living there. They had barbed wire in front of their houses, and they were survivalists, and they had an old country store that as soon as you opened the door, the player piano started playing. Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. Okay.
It was creepy, and we were ready to get out of there, but there was only one road in and one road out, and you had to be out by the time the sun went down because it looked down like about a 250, just a steep drop about 250 feet down into the side of the mountain. But so
Lloyd, as we have a saying, the other three people in this shot right now that we use and pretty much goes out worldwide when we see things like that, and we say the phrase only in America.
Yep.
I love that saying, because I've been to your country many times, and I use and every day I will say that I'll see something and say, only in America. Lovely.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fascinating.
It was an absolutely gorgeous video. Thank you very much for the Rambo for giving permission to put that on today. I spoke to him, and I hope to get him as a guest sometime in the near future. Speaking of guests, next week it's Christmas time. If you have a look back in the chat, one of our viewers today has the surname Christmas. So we're bringing Mr. Christmas to the channel next week and having a look at some of his videos. Awesome. Let me see what else. Everyone, be safe wherever you are. Do your social distancing. Everyone's told you to do it, so I should probably do it as well. One last thing. Anyone who's around after the show today, jump into Discord. I'm going to do a little bit of Wirecast testing to try and have a few people in Wirecast. What are you laughing at, Grumpy?
Nothing. I'm just trying to social distance.
Oh.
Yeah, okay.
Hang on. Grumpy.
We were quite happy laughing about it, don't worry.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Look, everyone, it's good having you here as always. See you next time. Have a good week. And again, join us in Discord very shortly. See you in Discord. Bye for now.
Fly safe, everyone.
Stay safe.